What's up, guys? Gonna answer another viewer inquiry. Oh, God. You ever get the giggles and you can't get them out? I've tried to do this video 4 or 5 times and I keep laughing every time, and so does my wife. I just can't stop. I don't know why. I'm not gonna redo it, so whatever. Uh, Stop. I get this question. I'm not going to say I get it a lot. I've gotten it a couple times in the past few days. And I figured if you're a new sub or new to knives or something, this could be good information. Because I say it a lot. I talk about early lockup a lot and late lockup. Uh, they ask what is early lockup, which, again, you have to be new to knives. And why is it important? And I'm not saying, again, you have to be new to knives because it's a bad thing to be new to knives. You're not ignorant or anything. It's just that you've never been exposed to that saying before, I guess. So I'm going to tell you what early lockup is, and I'm going to illustrate it, show it to you, and I'm going to describe why it's important, and I'm going to try and keep that in a short video. When we're talking about early lockup, we're talking about the interface between the locking bar on frame locks or liner locks, the interface between the locking bar and the blade tang, which is this part back here that the blade or the lock bar actually mates with to lock. That is called the lock interface. The interface between the blade tang, which is part of the blade you see here, and the lock bar, which you see here, and the lock face, which is, the flat portion of this lock bar. This is early lockup. Sorry, I was messing with the tripod. This is early lockup. What we mean by early is the percentage of the blade tang which is covered by the lock bar. It's not the percentage of the lock bar that goes into the blade tang. It's the opposite. It is the percentage of the blade tang, which is part of the blade, you see that right there, that the lock bar covers. Right now, this hinderer is at about 20% lockup. It'll probably never move, but that's another video or a different video. This is good. Early lockup is good. You don't want it to be too early. You don't want it to be something along the lines of that, which in a bad knife, one that's not put together very well, will allow the lock to slip like that. Hinderers, they can be extremely early and still not slip at all. And I'm not putting pressure on the lock at all. It's just, it won't move, it won't slip. The reason we like early lockup is because it gives you the maximum amount of life in the lock. If this lock came all the way halfway over the blade tang, then that's essentially 50% of the lock's life that is already gone. A good illustration of that is the ZT560. The lockup out of the box was something like that, around 20-25%, through flipping, which I probably flipped it 3,000 or 4,000 times. I know that's a lot, but it's a realistic number. It's now to about 50%, 55%, just maybe 50. But the lock came out of the box like that, and now it is here. So pretty much we have seen maybe 20% of the usable life of this lock already gone. That may seem bad, but having 50% or more of life left on the lock is a lot. It's probably many years of service left on this lock. And as you can see, the angle of the blade tang is pretty shallow, but also it's steep enough that the lock is going to have to wear exponentially more to get down to the other side the way this is angled. It's going to have to wear a whole lot to move much past this in the future. It will happen over time, but it's going to be slow going. Again, the earlier the lockup, the more life you have left in your lock, essentially. The later the lockup, like on a knife like this is probably 85% lockup. Now this is a Chris Reeve, and they treat their lock face as a carburized lock face, which makes it not wear much, if at all. So let's pretend this is any other knife with 85% lockup. Again, we're pretending this is not a Chris Reeve knife, so I don't want to get a comment saying how Chris Reeves, it'll never do this. We're pretending this is a different knife. Let's just say it's a CRKT frame lock. I don't like CRKT, so I just pulled that out of my ass. But let's pretend this is some kind of CRKT frame lock. If you pull it out of the box and it's already this far over on the tang, chances are within the first year you're having it, first year of you having it, the lock is going to move all the way to the other side and actually hit the scale. You don't want that to happen because A, you have no life left in your lock, and B, if your tang has already, or your lock bar has already worn itself enough to hit the other scale, you're going to have a lot of slop in your lock, meaning the lock is not going to put pressure, enough pressure on the blade to keep it sandwiched in between the lock and the stop pin, which is going to give you play, up and down play, which is the blade moving like this. That's dangerous. It can cause the lock to fail, and it's just generally not good. You don't want a knife to have any play at all, especially not vertical. But if your lock comes out looking like this and it's not a Chris Reeve, then you may have a problem. It's not always a problem, but any frame lock that isn't a Chris Reeve, I like to have early lockup. This is an example of lockup which it's fairly deep, but it's good to have this deep. I actually don't even want to confuse you with that. I was about to talk about Line Steel's past problems with a frame lock, but this is pretty much a 101 video, like frame lock 101, so I don't want to complicate things with that other erroneous information. Yeah, so pretty much early lockup is preferable with a frame lock, in my opinion. Some people don't like early lockup. Some people like later lockup, such as the ZT560, which this is perfectly acceptable. I don't want to have anybody feeling like this isn't perfectly acceptable. This is definitely acceptable. There's a lot of life left in this lock, but I would prefer it to be earlier like it was when I first got it. I mean, no big deal. It'll last many, many, many years to come, but early lockup is preferable to me. And if you get a lock made by somebody that's a good maker like Mr. Hinderer, you could flip this knife thousands of times and the lock won't move, and it's just due to his treatment of the lock face, which he carbonizes, and his excellent locking geometry, which is the relationship of the angle of the lock face, the actual lock bar itself, and the position, or the interface between the lock face and the tang, which is sometimes a straight linear grind, sometimes it's a concave radius. It can be many things, or just a couple things, but early lockup is preferable, in my opinion, and early lockup does mean that the lock has more life left in it. That's not debatable. The earlier the lockup, the longer the life of the lock. So that's the reason I say I like early lockup, and that's what early lockup is. So anyway, kept this under 10 minutes, I think. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.